Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Library Marketing Basics, Promoting on a Shoestring Budget. I'm Susan McGuire, Senior Editor, Collection Management and Library Outreach here at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. To resize the slides, look to the magnifying glass icons located to the left of the slides. There you can increase or decrease the size and select how you'd like the slides to appear. If you lose audio or would like to change the way you're connected to it, look at the bottom of your screen for a circle with 3 dots. Clicking that icon will open a menu with an audio connection option. If you experience any issues during the webinar, click on the FAQ webinars in the drop-down menu at the top of your WebEx screen to view a PDF with answers to commonly asked webinar questions. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the right side of your screen is a control panel with an area at the bottom for Q&A. Simply type your question into the field and click Send. Attendees can see questions asked during the webinar and the answers provided. Links to today's slides were sent directly to you from WebEx at the start of the webinar, but you can also download the slides at any time by copying the URL on this screen into your web browser. This afternoon, all attendees will receive an email containing a link to today's slide presentation and a certificate of completion. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Mark Aaron Polger. Mark is an academic librarian and information literacy instructor who has been working in libraries for over 30 years. He received his MLIS degree almost 20 years ago and has worked as a librarian in public, hospital, and academic libraries. Currently, he is the coordinator of library outreach at the College of Staten Island at the City University of New York. Polger's research interests include library marketing, outreach, and user experience design. He is most interested in how users interact with the library's physical and virtual touchpoints, specifically the website, terminology, signage, and promotional materials. He has written and presented on topics ranging from library marketing strategies, faculty outreach, information literacy marketing campaigns, library jargon, and library signage. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So can I get to the next slide from here? I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, I see it. Okay, I apologize. Okay, here we are. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be talking today about Library Marketing 101 and talking a little bit about what marketing libraries really mean. And I just want to get right to the agenda. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about myself and my career path and how I became an accidental library marketer. And I'm going to be discussing what true marketing really is and give a really quick review of the definitions that a lot of library employees conflate and misunderstand. And I'm also going to be explaining why marketing matters, especially now. And I'll be discussing about the themes of market research as well as market segmentation. That's numbers 5 and 6, as well as discussing branding, marketing campaigns, as well as the components of developing a marketing plan, and also discussing advocacy as a component of marketing, and then completing and finalizing the discussion with briefly discussing websites as marketing tools, as well as social media. Please let me know in the chat window if my voice isn't clear or if I'm speaking too quickly. I'm really happy to repeat myself or to speak slower. Okay, so just a fast introduction. I'm from Montreal, Canada, and I've been working in libraries in all different capacities since 1988. My background is in sociology and education, so I do not have a marketing background. I'm completely self-taught. I identify as an accidental marketer because in all of my professional positions, I was expected to conduct marketing activities even though I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to learn on the job what marketing means in libraries. So I did a variety of marketing activities as a children's librarian, also working as a cataloger in a biotech consulting firm, working in an academic library, also working in a hospital library. Marketing was part of my job, and I didn't really fully understand what I was doing. So it was just an interest of mine because it seems that a lot of us are responsible for some aspect of marketing, and I would argue that marketing is really a part of a lot of librarians' jobs. I'm currently working in the City University of New York, known as CUNY, C-U-N-Y, the CUNY system. I'm at the campus on Staten Island, and that's the College of Staten Island, which is the only campus of public education, higher education on Staten Island. It's the only CUNY campus on Staten Island. And my duties include marketing. So I started out as a reference and instruction librarian, and as the years have gone by, I've been at CSI for 11 years. Marketing has been a part of my job. Okay, so I'm going to just talk about what really is true marketing. You might have known that Kotler, who is the father of modern marketing, coined the term marketing as a process of connecting products and services to specific target audiences. So it's really, marketing is all about connections and developing relationships and connecting specialized products and services to very specific audiences. There are so many definitions of marketing. I just wanted to make a very clear, very simplified definition of marketing. So marketing involves studying our users and making sure that we deliver targeted products and services to our users. So really, marketing needs to be user-focused and user-centered. So the 4 Ps of marketing, over the years they've changed. There's like 7 Ps, and there's a lot of different components of marketing. I coined this the marketing umbrella, but the 4 Ps of marketing are place, product, promotion, and price. And most library employees are really engaged with the promotion, but we don't really study the place and the product and the price. This is known as the marketing mix. And the marketing cycle, coined by Kathy Dempsey, who wrote in 2009, The Accidental Library Marketer, she coined this marketing cycle where marketing involves conducting market research and studying your users, dividing your users into different groups called segments, identifying selective things to promote to those segments, and using different activities such as promotional materials, events, campaigns, activities, and paid advertising, targeting those specific segments, and then after using evaluation tools to make sure that those users are satisfied or happy with the different marketing activities that library employees have conducted. And so this is a cycle. It starts all over again, but it's really important to always start with conducting market research to really study your users. So as I mentioned a few slides ago, library employees they're involved in some aspect of marketing, but really what we're really doing is we're promoting. And we're not really engaged in the entire marketing cycle, but when we create a flyer or a brochure or a sign or a poster or an activity, we're actually not marketing, we're actually promoting. And promotion is a part of marketing, but it is just a piece of the puzzle. So promotion as a separate category and a separate component of marketing actually has its own mix called the promotional mix. And the promotional mix is comprised of the following 4 characteristics: public relations, which is what a lot of library employees do; paid advertising, that's something that we don't typically do; sales promotions, that's something we don't really do that; and as well as direct mailings, which is something that libraries may be engaged with doing. So I would say from the promotional mix, which is a piece of marketing, I think a lot of libraries are engaged with doing public relations as well as direct mailings. But we're not really active with paid advertising. I mean, maybe some public libraries do that. And sales promotions, we don't really do that. I will give examples of sales promotions and how it could translate to libraries, but we don't usually do that. So I've thought of marketing as an umbrella. And so this is something that I've made up myself. So in the marketing umbrella, the spokes of the umbrella or the components are what a lot of library employees conflate and we really get mixed up and we don't fully understand. So I've actually shown an umbrella and the different parts of marketing or the components comprise communications, advertising, promotion, advocacy, outreach, publicity, and public relations. So in the next slide, I'm going to be just very briefly discussing them, just because it's really important to distinguish between these terms, because they're all part of the larger marketing umbrella, but they're not really marketing. So communications is using multiple modes or multiple modalities to share meaning amongst your potential customers. And a lot of us are always communicating. We're always using different communication channels, whether it's an assign, a poster, a newsletter, social media, a website. We're always communicating to our users, and we're using multiple modalities and different mediums. So we're always sharing meaning because we want to share the value of why libraries are so great. Public relations, which has usually been authored by a publicist. Publicists still exist, but public relations is now authored by everyone because public relations is how organizations maintain a positive public image through strategic planned communication. So when you post something on Twitter or when you are writing a press release, you are using communications, but you're also engaging in a form of public relations because you're writing and you're trying to maintain a positive public image to communicate that back to your users. So public relations, which used to always be done by publicists, are now written by a lot of people. A lot of us act like quasi-publicists, and we communicate through text, and we try to maintain this public image through certain controlled language and controlled speech. And this is a form of very planned strategic communication. Publicity is how customers or library users perceive an organization's public message. And advertising is an organization's strategic message that's usually paid. I often think that publicity and advertising are similar, except advertising is really about how the organization pays to push out its strategic message, but publicity is how users perceive that public message. And I always think of publicity as buzz. So, in addition, branding, which a lot of us constantly think of branding as the logo of a company, which it is, but branding is much more than that. Branding represents the feelings and the mental images associated with the organization. So it's that fuzzy feeling when you close your eyes and you think about an organization and what it means to you. It represents the spirit of the organization, and it's much more than just a logo. Promotion is what most library employees conduct. It's an organization's method of raising awareness to their potential customers. Outreach, which I've seen a lot of brand new outreach librarian job postings and a lot of outreach librarian positions in the last 20 years. And outreach is really how an organization connects with an underserved targeted audience and how we make meaningful connections and develop these relationships with underserved populations or with specific targeted audiences. In an academic institution, which is where I am working, we can have internal outreach as well as external, meaning that we could connect with different campus departments and different departments across campus, as well as connect with external agencies and external groups. So, for example, I might, as an outreach librarian, and that's my title, I might liaise with the Office of Admissions to really promote the library by conducting library tours, but I also liaise and kind of connect out with the local high schools as well as the public library. And I'm in New York City, so it's the New York Public Library, or I make these connections and collaborations with different organizations outside of the college campus. Advocacy, I like to define advocacy as how you're going to be a cheerleader and how you're going to speak positively on behalf of an organization with the goal of influencing others. And advocacy should, in my opinion, advocacy should be a part of every library employee, especially those who are in public service positions, because we should be advocates and we should speak positively on behalf of our library, and we should influence others to support our library. Advocacy is very much connected with fundraising. It's very much connected with garnering not just support but also financial support. I'm going to talk about that later. So marketing, I'd like to think of marketing conceptually. I'm going to connect that with Hemingway's iceberg theory, also known as the theory of omission. And the marketing iceberg theory is that what you see in terms of the marketing activities is just the tip of the iceberg. And what people don't see is all of the planning and the strategy that library employees need to be engaged with in order to successfully market and promote their library's offering services and resources. So the iceberg visual is very effective to show that when you see the tip of the iceberg, that's only what we see in a library. But what we don't see is under the iceberg is all of the strategic planning, like the marketing plan and the meetings and the guidelines and the market research and the segmentation. And that's all the things that have to come before the actual marketing activities. Before the marketing campaign, we need to be able to have strategic planning, and we have to be able to plan. That's why that it's always dangerous to conduct these marketing activities and then do the assessment after. That's, in my opinion, that's known as upside down marketing. It's backwards, and it's actually not really reflective of true marketing. So why does marketing matter? So there's always an assumption in the library that if you build it, it will come, and that's a quote from Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. So we're now in competition with Google and Wikipedia and Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, amongst so many other global companies that provide information. So we're no longer the monopoly for information access. We're in competition with all these companies. So marketing is necessary to inform our users about our value and why we need to make sure to be 2 steps ahead of Google and Wikipedia and Amazon. And we have to learn to find different ways to reach our target audiences and find ways to connect their needs and desires with our offerings and what we can offer them. A lot of library employees think that marketing is a bad word. And I can understand that because marketing is often seen as that pushy car salesperson or that pushy store associate who's trying to sell clothing because they want to make a commission. Marketing is not a bad word. Marketing is not always about sales. Marketing, in my view, is about connections, about developing meaningful relationships and really meeting the needs of our target audience. So we're already doing marketing, but a lot of us don't call it marketing. A lot of us don't even know we're doing marketing. But I have some examples of some of the components of what we're doing, which I'm going to call it promotion. I'm not going to be calling it marketing, but they are marketing-related activities. So when you promote free textbooks in a library instruction class, that's word-of-mouth marketing because it's spoken. When you're creating a flyer or a bookmark, that's creating a promotional material. That's still part of marketing. When you're showing the library website in a class, that's also a form of, again, promoting and highlighting and raising the profile of the library website. I would argue the library website is just another virtual branch of your library. So you have to think of it as a virtual location. And giving a library tour to incoming freshmen is also a form of, again, of outreach and of promotion. So we're doing marketing, and a lot of us don't even know it, or a lot of us are unaware that marketing is embedded in the very work that we're doing as library employees. So other examples of marketing-related activities would be promoting a database in a reference interview, creating a YouTube video, whether it is a marketing-related YouTube video or whether it is an instructional video. You're still creating something, and you're targeting a specific audience, and you want them to visit the library. You want them to use our databases. You want them to visit the physical facility, or you want them to use our resources. So you're still promoting our service. Conducting a website usability study, that's an example of market research because you're studying your users, which is essential because you can't conduct marketing activities without asking users what they really want, because marketing should be user-focused and user-centered. And of course, revamping the library signage, which is something that I've done. I was involved in a huge signage audit in 2012. And what's really important is that you need to ask your users, what kinds of signs do you like? What signs are effective? Which are ineffective? What kind of designs do you like? So revamping the library signage with an audit needs to take into account library users, and that's also an example of communications, which is part of marketing. So here are some other promotional activities which are all part of the marketing umbrella that a lot of library employees think that it's marketing, but it's actually not marketing. It's just pieces of marketing. It's components of the marketing umbrella. So creating a flyer, a bookmark, a poster, paid advertisement, a mass email, a listserv post, announcing an event, implementing event, planning the event, promoting the event, and of course writing a press release. Those are all parts of marketing. Please let me know in the chat window if I'm going too fast. I don't see a lot of chat going on right now. But please let me know if there's something you'd like me to repeat, to clarify. Okay, so some of the themes of true marketing that I want to address, that I only have time to address in this hour. Oh, Alicia has a question. Let's see. I'm going to just... Okay, sorry, I don't see the question. And Margaret and Robert have questions. I don't see anything in the chat window. That's
Hi.
So yeah, sorry.
Mark, it's Susan. I'm just interrupting. So so far, your questions are mostly that you're doing great. So. Oh,
okay. Then I'm glad.
Wonderful.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, I'm glad. Okay, so here are the themes. Thank you very much, Susan. So here are the themes of true marketing that I can touch a point in this presentation. True marketing involves research, studying your users. And that's easy because I'm going to talk about how you can study your users. True marketing involves segmentation, which just means splitting your users into groups because you can't market to all. You have to split them into groups. True marketing involves planning, so having a marketing plan. And I'm going to talk about the components of a marketing plan. And then finally, true marketing involves assessment, getting feedback in a cyclical manner, meaning getting continuous feedback to always make sure that your marketing activities are successful and they're actually useful. Because there's no point in spending a lot of money or just spending a lot of time, even if your marketing is free, spending a lot of time and then finding out, oh, that was useless. None of my users really wanted that. Because it's really important to ask them, what do you want? So, 19? Okay. So market research. Very often, as I had mentioned before, a lot of library employees conduct the marketing, have these elaborate activities, elaborate materials, campaigns, events, but they haven't studied their users. They haven't figured out, like, is that what their users actually want? That's known as upside down marketing. So it's really important before you invest money or time in a really elaborate library marketing campaign or a set of activities or these beautiful promotional materials, you need to actually ask your users what they want. So market research really is the assessment to figure out what library users expect from us and what they want. So we must study our users first, then pursue marketing activities after. Marketing decisions should be data-driven, meaning they're based on evidence, because there's nothing worse than having an elaborate, expensive, time-consuming marketing activity where nobody shows up because that's not what they wanted or not what they expected. So some examples of market research data. So primary data would be something that's original. So having your own focus groups and interviewing library users, obtaining questionnaires, and having participant observation or unobtrusive observation. So in my library, we have mini questionnaires. There are 4 questions. They're on paper. If we gave them a link, they wouldn't answer them. So we have mini questionnaires that are on paper. We manually enter them into an online survey management software such as SurveyMonkey. Office 365 also has that. So there's also Qualtrics, I believe. And so these mini questionnaires, which we've already had IRB approval so we can actually conduct them, is a way of really learning and studying our users. So that's an example of primary data. I've had interviews. Also, when I've interviewed students about their feelings and perceptions of signage. One of my research areas is signage. So having interviews. This is really great primary source data. As well as participant observation or unobtrusive observation, hopefully not in a creepy way, but just kind of just observing your users and seeing where they go and what they, just observing. Secondary and tertiary data, some of those examples would be using census data, community survey data, reference books is an example of tertiary data, and also my favorite, consulting the Pew Research Center. Pew Research Center is a wonderful website. I'm sure most of you or all of you are very familiar and you've gone to the Pew Research Center. They have tons of wonderful surveys and offer free statistics, especially relating to library users. So it's very, very, very useful. So those are examples of getting market research data to really understand your audience and really understand your users. And that really informs you in terms of making decisions. And it drives your decisions so that your marketing is not just random, but it's based on evidence. Okay. So market segmentation is, we can't market to all our users because our users are different. So we need to actually understand that our users have different needs and wants, so we need to segment them. Segment is just a jargony fancy word for splitting them up into different users. So there are 4 types of segmentation. There's psychographic, geographic, behavioral, and demographic. I'm not going to get into all of these because a lot of them are explained in more detail in my book, but basically I think demographic and geographic are 2 types of segments that a lot of us can really grasp our minds around. So, and I think a lot of us naturally seem to split our users into demographic, like the different age, we tend to split with age groups and stuff. So you have a variety of ways of splitting your users. So I have some examples in the next slide, just 2 examples. So in a public library, you might want to be able to segment your users, and there are so many different combinations, like families with children, families with 1 child, families with 2 children, and so there are different combinations of segments. But if you want to do single person segments, there are children, teenagers, senior citizens, trustees, college students, homeless, persons with disabilities, friends of the library, volunteers, and staff. If I've missed any, I apologize. I just want to give an example. It's so easy to take your library user population and split them into different groups. These groups are called segments. And you want to be able to actually focus your marketing on those specific groups. You can't market to all 10. That's too much. Especially a lot of libraries don't necessarily have a full-time marketing person. So you need to be very selective and specific. So just focus on 1 group at a time and make that a goal for a year or for 6 months, and have a campaign for 6 months and have a particular goal in mind and try to target that specific group. So in an academic library, because I work in an academic library, when I'm thinking about the different segments in my library, I'm thinking about different undergraduates. And for the last, I think, 6 years, I was a first year. I was a first year librarian. So my target audience was first year students. So I was an outreach librarian for first year students. So that's a very specific segment of undergraduates. But more generally, in an academic library, you're going to have faculty, whether they're full-time or part-time faculty, staff, full-time or part-time staff, undergraduates, graduate students, alumni, or the community. We are in a public school, so we also serve the community. The public are able to come into the library. You can further divide those segments even more, and then you can actually target your marketing to something very specific. Now, after segmentation comes positioning, and positioning is discussed more in the book, but positioning is really taking your segment and really making sure to tailor your marketing to that specific segment. So positioning is just further segmentation.
Hi, Mark. It's Susan
Hi.
interrupting
Hi.
again.
Okay.
So we've had a couple of questions come in, and I wanted to let people know that we'll try to get to all of the questions. We might save some for the end, or we'll be able to answer them via email. But while you're talking about market, while you're talking about market segmentation, Ryan LaFernie, sorry if I just said your name wrong, just asked if you have an effective way to do intergenerational program or to market for patrons for intergenerational programming, or basically, is there a trick for marketing to several segments at once, maybe?
Oh, okay. So again, I am again an accidental marketer. So I've learned all this through trial and error, and I would say yes. So you would make a special segment. So let's say you're in a public library and you want to have grandparent and grandchild reading time. So that's an example of intergenerational. So you're focusing your marketing on the segment of specifically like grandparents and their grandchildren. So that means that you're focusing your efforts and you're kind of collapsing or merging two different segments into a larger segment. So I would say that you would be creating a brand new segment, a custom segment called the grandparent-grandchild custom segment. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but there are ways of creating custom segments based on the unique characteristics of your library. And so I think that's and again, I'm just like literally that's the first thing that came into my mind. Is that, it's all about customizing the marketing to a specific audience and to a specific target audience. So if you're looking at intergenerational marketing, then you just have to create a custom way of capturing those two sub-segments, the grandparent and the grandchild, as an example. I hope I've answered the question.
No, it sounds like Ryan is happy with the answer, and I'm happy with the answer. Those are the two things that matter. So
okay, great. I'm happy too. Okay, so on to the next slide. So branding, I really want to emphasize. So I want to emphasize that branding is not only about the logo. Like we know that when a brand is really powerful, you don't even need the name anymore. So I don't know if you all go to Starbucks. Some of you or a lot of you may. Starbucks brand is so powerful that they don't even have to have the word Starbucks anymore. You know that, the green mermaid or the mermaid, or at least what looks like a mermaid in green with the long hair, it's such a powerful image and such a powerful brand that you don't even need the name Starbucks. Because if you have a cup of coffee at Starbucks, they don't have the words Starbucks anymore because the brand is so strong. So branding is really about closing your eyes and thinking about all of the emotional feelings and those warm or not so warm, fuzzy feelings about an organization. It's known as the library's story, meaning the identity of the library, and it's the library's narrative and what makes the library special and what makes it unique against the competition. Branding is setting yourself up and showing how unique you are against the competition and what makes an organization special and unique. So it's really about the non-tangible qualities, and it's much more than just the logo. But you're right that a lot of us are thinking that branding is about the colors and the font family and the way that when we think of McDonald's, we think of the golden arches. But when I think of McDonald's as a vegetarian, I think McDonald's is junk food, and I also think of childhood because I ate at McDonald's as a kid before I became a vegetarian, and I've been a vegetarian for almost 30 years. So the branding of McDonald's is, as a child, fun, junk food, the playground, Ronald McDonald, special, because it's special food, meaning you don't necessarily go there every day. So branding is much more about those golden arches and that it's yellow. It's much more. It's all the feelings associated with an organization. So I'm going to talk about brand audits in the next slide. But the two terms I want to discuss for branding is the brand strength, why customers choose one brand over another, and brand loyalty, why customers will commit and continue to love a brand despite its downfalls. So the examples I have are I'm an iPhone user, and I'm always choosing Apple products over Android, Apple versus PC. So there's certain brand strength, even though I'm very aware that my iPhone freezes and there's problems and it's super expensive, and but there is brand strength that people only buy Apple products or PC products, or they only go to Starbucks as opposed to another cafe. In terms of brand loyalty, so some customers are loyal to Amazon, as an example, or Amazon's companies, they shop at Whole Foods, even though they're very aware that Amazon is known. I'm not defaming Amazon. They're known that they don't necessarily treat their employees very well. There's a lot of New York Times articles and other newspapers that discuss some, not all, of the employees that feel unfairly treated by Amazon. But customers are still loyal. Some customers still shop at Amazon, still shop at Whole Foods, may feel a sense of guilt, but they're still loyal to those brands. So brand loyalty and brand strength are really important, and they definitely can be translated to libraries for sure. In terms of creating a brand audit is basically a bunch of questions that you need to be able to ask your colleagues. It's used for employees, and it's also used for library users. So some of the questions in a brand audit might be, what words come to mind when you think about the library that you work in? What are your library strengths and weaknesses? What is the library's competition? So in our college campus, the library's competition is obviously the bookstore, and obviously the campus center, obviously Amazon, obviously Google. So the library has competition, and in branding, you just have to be able to understand and identify that there is going to be competition. And what are some of the images that best represent the library? And that also kind of informs how branding gets developed by looking at what are some of the mental images and the visuals that really relate to what represents the library, and what do users think about the library, and what are their expectations of the library? So it's really about trying to study how staff think about the library, what they think others perceive the library, and how they think users perceive the library. So it's really important to ask these questions to staff, and that's also a brand audit, as well as asking your library users. So asking library users, what words describe the library? Why do you use the library? How do you feel when you use the library? Where do you go when the library is closed? How did you learn about the library? And what is an appropriate image when you think about the library? What are some of the mental images? And what do you think about when you think of your public, academic, special, medical library? And really, what is the meaning of the library, and why do you go to the library? So we really want to be able to explore and study both employees as well as library users, and their feelings, their perceptions, and their experiences with the library, and that helps develop the articulation of a library brand. And this can take a long time. This also is not something that happens like right away. So marketing campaigns, this is the fun stuff. So marketing campaigns, a campaign is a large-scale set of activities, events, materials that are used to promote a specific product or service. Marketing campaigns use a very consistent, specific theme with a common look or feel, and they have very specific, tangible goals and objectives. And they're project-based, which means there's a beginning and an end. Marketing campaigns are not, they do not go on forever. A marketing campaign is very finite. So it's comprised of events that it might involve the media, activities, materials. It might involve different media formats. A lot of marketing campaigns now are on social media. They're on websites. They're on video. They're in print. They're across multi-modalities and different mediums. They target a very specific audience because marketing has to target a specific audience. You cannot market to everyone. And they use something called a CTA, which stands for a call to action. So a perfect example is if you're having, let's say, a library card sign-up drive. You're having like similar to a membership drive, but like you really want to drive in a public library more library card sign-ups. You would say sign up now. So really the word now, which is very active, it's very, I'm not going to say aggressive, but join it now, sign up now, call us now. That's an example of call to action because it's very much, it's very active and it's very, it's really the opposite of passive. It's really using active language. Marketing campaigns use multiple promotional channels I had mentioned before, really taking advantage of print, the web, social media, the news, television, paid advertisements, videos, audio, really a lot of different modalities. And you want to use a very clear, consistent message. You don't want to start changing terminology. You want to use the same terms, the same language, and you don't want to confuse people. You really don't want to use jargon, and you really want to make sure to follow up with assessment to make sure that marketing campaign was actually effective. So this is the fun part. Here are some like library campaigns. They're both advocacy campaigns as well as awareness campaigns. There's a lot of them. I just was only to mention ones that are pretty significant. So the Campaign for America's Libraries, which is it's no longer active, but it was known as At Your Library. Very memorable, and I'm sure a lot of you all remember that At Your Library. ALA allowed libraries to use all of that visual identity, all of that branding. So the Campaign for America's Libraries was therefore, it evolved into the Libraries Transform campaign, which I believe is the current ALA campaign that is going on right now. And it's a lot of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful posters that really focus on how libraries are transformative. So again, it's really having a theme of transformation. And so these messages, which you can just Google Libraries Transform, it's just a wonderful campaign. There's also the Banned Books Week. There's also September, which is Library Card Sign-Up Month. And of course, there's the Save IMLS advocacy campaign, which was, I believe it was last year, 2 years ago, when President Trump took funding away, and there was a huge hashtag Save IMLS, and then the funding was restored. I don't know the current status right now of the IMLS funding, but this was also this was, again, it was about 2 years ago. So it's just 15 minutes left. Okay, I'm going to go really fast. Sorry. Okay. So these are examples of different library campaigns. Okay. So the next one, these are other campaigns that are not library related. So Partnership for a Drug-Free America. I grew up in the 1980s, so remember this. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? Very powerful campaign. The Dove Real Beauty campaign. Progressive Insurance, that's with Flo, the character Flo, very memorable character. Geico Insurance with the gecko, and of course Movember. Those are examples of really great, memorable campaigns. Not necessarily library campaigns, but also just campaigns in the corporate world that are very memorable that can, kind of gain inspiration for your libraries. Other campaigns more recently, Liberty Mutual, the Limu Emu, which is hilarious. There's 3 sets of commercials, as well as videos with this emu. Farmers Insurance with Professor Burke. Where's the Beef with Clara Peller. That was in the 80s when I was growing up. The It Gets Better project, started by Dan Savage. And of course, something that was memorable for me, Gilmore Girls, when they were promoting their reboot on Netflix, there were these pop-up diners where these pop-up diners that would look like Luke's Diner would pop up all over United States and Canada in these different cafes to really promote the Gilmore Girls reboot. And it was just very, very, yes, okay. So I thought it was just very interesting. There was one in my neighborhood. So, that it was like, what's that? And it was like, oh, it was promoting the Gilmore Girls reboot. I believe that was in 2016. And that was really memorable because it was very interesting. Of course, they're very expensive to have these kinds of campaigns, but campaigns are really, really very large scale. Okay. So a library marketing plan is really when you want to do a SWOT analysis. You can Google SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is a reflective examination of your library's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and looking at your library's mission and vision and identifying your target audiences. You have many target audiences. You can only market to one of them at a time, and then focusing on positioning, which is taking your target audience and really tweaking your marketing to that specific target audience. And that's really constructing a library marketing plan. And so I have a chapter in the book about library marketing plans that really helps you really talk about the different components of a library marketing plan. So these are some of the components. As well as really setting tangible goals and identifying different communication channels to really disseminate this information. So really, really outlining all of the different communication channels, and then also really reflecting on your return on investment. Basically, is your marketing a waste, or is it actually going to produce some kind of net result? It's really important to look at your return on investment because, again, you don't want marketing to be a waste of time or money. And then you want to be able to select your evaluation tools. So that means that you want to be able to look at what are the assessment tools that you're going to use to study your target audiences before you actually conducted marketing activities. Okay, I only have 5 slides left, which is good. So I want to just conclude the last 5 slides that advocacy is also a form of marketing. Advocacy is connected to the marketing, public relations, fundraising, and promotion of your library. How we speak on behalf of our organization is what advocacy is. It's really about how we speak on behalf of another organization in order to influence others to support that. And really, I would argue that library employees need to be frontline advocates. We need to advocate for the places that we work in. We need to learn how to be frontline advocates because unfortunately libraries and librarians and library employees don't have the best of reputations and also just have a very undervalued and also misunderstood. We're very misunderstood, and we need to learn how to be the cheerleader for our organization. So an example of advocacy would be practice of 30-second elevator speech. So what are the most important things that you want your stakeholders to know? And so if you want to pick 2 or 3, right, what are the most important things that you want to educate somebody who is a stakeholder and somebody who really is either a policymaker or a decision maker, but that doesn't know anything about libraries? And really, what are some of the 1 or 2 or 3 things that you could actually fit into 30 seconds that are the most important things about your library? Also, when you speak to the media, you want to be able to speak on behalf of the organization and to always be transparent, positive, think about the organization's benefit, and don't think about yourself. And also don't get personal because you want to be able to speak positively about your organization. So ways to advocate for your library, basically setting up a Friends of the Library, having a library foundation, word of mouth marketing, also known as WOMM, and also meeting and speaking with legislators and really practicing that elevator speech because you want to make sure to give the most important information with the least amount of words, right? Because you want people to remember, the core importance of your library, but making sure not to overload them with information. Websites are also marketing tools. The website would be often the first virtual place or the first place the library user may visit even before they even physically enter the library. I would argue that a website is a library's virtual location or another location. And really creating wonderful websites that are user-friendly and intuitive is actually very, 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 very inexpensive, almost free. They are the least expensive forms of marketing. Library websites must be intuitive, and the content cannot be buried under layers and layers and layers of content. It must be user-centered. It must be intuitive. Usability testing must be conducted to really understand how users navigate the website, how they organize the website. That could be done through card sorting, and how they actually navigate through the website. And a website also must be responsive, because it's kind of a waste to create a secondary website that's only for like mobile phones. A lot of organizations create a mobile website as well as a desktop website. It actually would make more sense to actually just create one website that's responsive so it works across different devices, as opposed to duplicating and creating like a duplicate website just for mobile devices, which is actually really a waste of time, because you're just doing double the amount of work when really your website should just be responsive. Web analytics really enabled us to study how users navigate through the website, which web pages are the most visited, which websites are the most easy to get to, how long they actually stay on that website, how they actually go onto that website, and where they leave from that website. So web analytics are very, very useful in studying how your web users actually navigate and use your website, and that's really, really important. I only have 3 slides left. I can't believe it. In addition, usability testing identifies how user-centered the website really is. Card sorting helps learn how users organize the architecture of a website. And users often scan web pages in a Z, or I say Z because I'm from Canada, but they often scan web pages in a Z or an F pattern. So it's really important when you're putting text and images to think about how library users read a web page. There are a lot of eye tracking devices and a lot of different types of tests that will actually measure the eyes and how users will actually view a web page. And web copy should be jargon free. It should not be text heavy, and websites should use a sans serif font. But basically, usually in the print world, bodies of text use a serif font, a serif font. But on the web, usually it's sans serif or sans serif, because it's just much easier to read. And it's important for web copy to chunk your text and to make bulleted lists, because library users don't like to scroll. They don't like to read large paragraphs of text. So it's much easier to just chunk the text. And I have a lot of different books, if you want to email me, that I can recommend on how to write for the web in terms of web copy. And that's probably another webinar topic, but that's also part of marketing, because you want to make sure that you're writing appropriately for your users to be able to read. Okay, so user experience design mixes usability with the emotions of the user. So UX is really concerned with 7 issues: usability, usefulness, value, findability, accessibility, credibility, and desirability. So it really examines how users interact in the physical and virtual environments, and it applies to both websites and physical spaces. Please don't think about user experience as only websites. Finally, social media as a marketing and an engagement tool. Think of social media not as pushing out promotional content, but also engaging a two-way communication with your users. So I'm only going to give the examples of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, because I don't have time to go through all the different social media platforms. But Facebook, I see, is more of a visual blog of either an individual profile plus options for organizational groups or celebrity pages. Twitter is microblogging platform for marketing and sparking conversation through the use of hashtags, which make content discoverable. And Instagram is video and photo sharing through hashtags. So the way to use them is that you want to be able to really take advantage of Facebook Insights, Twitter Analytics, and Instagram Analytics through third-party websites, because you want to analyze who are going to your pages, who are going to see your tweets, and who are looking at your photos. Analytics or insights is a really important tool to be able to again, study your users, to understand that it's a waste of time if you're posting to Facebook and you find out that you're posting to students and students are not going on your Facebook. Our Facebook at where I am is mostly targeted to faculty and targeted to the community, not to students. So it's really important to identify who your target audience is through analytics and understanding, where they're going, who they are. In addition, looking at advertisements, if you have the money and you have the budget, advertisements also really, really expedite and really help and assist with pushing out content. So it's really great. I recommend using insights as well as advertisements. So social media guidelines, which is the last part of my presentation, the components of a social media guideline document or a policy are really, really identifying and articulating the library's mission and the goals and objectives, also looking at the different target audiences, and also trying to keep a consistent persona and tone, and also identifying a scheduling frequency in terms of how frequent you're going to post to different social media platforms, as well as really having a policy on retweets, commenting, or sharing. That's all known as engagement, and that's the way that you are communicating and engaging back with your users. And how would you deal with hostile users, as well as looking at using very consistent, specific hashtags that are library specific, and also just kind of like, how would you, for example, we have a committee. We have a committee at my library on how we would generate content. So how would you strategize generating content? Because it should not be random. It should not be random. I highly recommend Chase's calendar. Chase's calendar is wonderful. Chase's, CHASE apostrophe S. It comes out every year. It's a calendar of amazing events. Chase's calendar. As well as looking at accessibility issues, and there are a lot of articles on social media and accessibility, and also the techniques and strategies to engage with users in an authentic, informal way. And finally, assessment. Again, talking about Facebook Insights, Twitter Analytics, always make sure to check your analytics to see who's following you, who's going to your pages. Really, really important to really study your users. So I can't believe I finished on time. I'm shocked. I'm beyond shocked. If you want to learn more, please reach out to me. Please email me. I'm very friendly. I answer email right away. Okay. Here's the cover of my book. It's beautiful. It's purple. It's a beautiful cover. It's on Amazon, and there's a lot more detail on this book, so I invite you to reach out to me. I'm very, very, very glad to, very happy to share some sample signage policies or social media policies or library marketing plans. So please reach out to me if you have any more questions or comments. Thank you very, 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 very much for attending this webinar today, and I can't believe I finished on time.
Sorry, I just muted and unmuted myself.
Okay.
So if you
I can't
want
believe
to
I'm so
really
sorry.
take Mark up on that offer, here are ways to get in touch with him. So thank you, Mark. And I know people were asking questions about budget and like specifics about, what kind of questions do you ask students and things like that. So I encourage you to reach out to Mark or check out the book, Library Marketing Basics, which also got a really good review in Booklist. So thank you, Mark, and let's wrap it up. So thank you, Mark. I already said that slide. All right. This afternoon, all attendees will receive an email containing a link to today's slide presentation, title list, and a certificate of completion. You'll also receive a notice when the video archive of today's webinar is posted at booklistonline.com/webinars. Please visit that same URL to learn more about Booklist webinars, view an archive of past webinars, or register for our upcoming webinars, like the ones you see here. A lot of fun and informative things. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the Booklist Reader, where Booklist contributors are posting weekly about all things books and library land. And Booklist has a digital edition of the magazine, which you can connect to your subscription online. This format pairs the page-by-page reading experience of print with the convenience of online access, and it's included free with all Booklist subscriptions. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can take advantage of the special webinar offer to get print, online, digital, and archive access to Booklist for only $99. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar. Once more, thank you to our sponsor, Rowman & Littlefield. This concludes today's webinar.